When dealing with whether to rent, buy without financing, or lease, each situation is unique. A cost and benefit analysis should take everything into account. Costs include initial costs and fees, short-term costs, long-term costs, disposable income, the cost of financing, depreciation and appreciation, and penalties for breaking contracts and equity. Benefits include convenience, commitments, flexibility, and personal needs or wants, such as how often you want to buy a new car. When renting, leasing, or buying, you often need to make payments up front. Some payments go toward the overall cost, such as a down payment on a house or a lease deposit and the first and last month's rent. Other deposits, such as a rental damage deposit, may be refunded at a later date. Appreciation and depreciation affect the value of property. They're usually expressed as a rate per year. Equity can make buying a house a form of investment. Okay, so you're going out into the real world next year, and you're going to need to determine whether or not you want to rent, rent or buy a place. Okay, but primarily you're maybe even looking at renting or buying a car, or leasing or buying a car. So all you're doing today is you're just taking a look at the different costs and what is available to you. Okay, and what happens is if you buy a vehicle, the vehicle depreciates. If you buy a house, it usually appreciates, depending on how long you have it and what upgrades you do to it. Okay, so when it comes to buying or renting, the ideal situation is always to buy to own something. All right, rent to own is always a good thing too, but you always want to have that money go towards something that is concrete that you have for you. Renting is never much fun because you're just throwing your money away. But in the situation that you're in right now, the majority of you are going to rent next year when you decide to go to school. Okay. Morag is a co-op student, so let's look at the first example here. At the University of BC in Vancouver, she has been hired to complete a 16-work term in White Rock, about 50 kilometers from Vancouver. She's considering three options. Rent a room and a bed and breakfast in White Rock for $400 per week. The cost would include all utilities and meals. Lease an apartment in White Rock for $1,200 per month. She must pay first and last month's rent up front, plus a refundable damage deposit of $2,000. She also needs to pay about $200 per month for all utilities. Buy a used car for $12,000 on credit. The regular monthly payments of $1,000 and interest of 3.2% compounded monthly. She would live in Vancouver with her parents for free and commute to White Rock daily. Driving costs such as gas, insurance, and maintenance would be about $250 per week. The car would depreciate in value 20% each year. Which option would you advise Morag to choose and why? Okay, so let's start with the first one. So the first one is rent a room in a bed and breakfast in White Rock for $400 per week. The cost would include all utilities. Okay, so she has a 16-week term at $400 per week. All right, what does that work out to? $6,400. So at the end of it, she'd have $6,400 going to the rent. Now, this is not a terrible option because it doesn't cost a lot of money up front, right? It does include utilities. It does include, it's a bed and breakfast, so it includes food as well, right? So that's huge, okay? Because realistically, food probably is at least $100 to $150 a week, all right? Utilities are probably $200 a month minimum, okay? So that's not a terrible option. Lease an apartment in White Rock for $1,200 per month. She must pay first and last month's rent up front plus a refundable damage deposit of $2,000. She also needs to pay $200 per month for all utilities. Okay, so how much is it going to cost her a month?
$1,200. Oh.
How much? $1,400. For 4 months? So what does that work out to? All right, $5,600. Okay. But Okay, so that's what it should work out in the end. But to begin with, what's it going to cost her to start this up? 2,000 plus how much? Not 28, no. 2,400. Yeah. Plus 2,400, right? So to begin with, it's going to cost her $4,400 before she even sets foot into the apartment, right? So that's fairly high. So what does she have left over? Well, she's going to have to pay still another $3,200 here, but then she gets that $2,000 back at the end of it, right? But to begin with, it's going to cost her $4,400 to just set foot in there. So unless she has that money up front right away, then that might not be an option for her. It's a very similar option, but it is cheaper actually. When it's all said and done, it is cheaper than that guy right there. Right? By $1,200. So it does make sense to do it, but you have to have that money to begin with. Alright, to start it up. Finally, buy a used car. Alright, so now we're going to need our TBM solvers here. So get your calculators out. You're going to need one of these. We'll get one out of the library after I'm done. Okay. Buy a used car for $12,000 on credit with regular monthly payments of $1,000 and interest at 3.2% compounded monthly. Okay, so let's look at what the cost is going to be with this. So NI, present value, payment, future value, payments per year, compounds. Okay, so go to apps. Okay, she's got it there. All right. Okay. So finance TBM solver. All right. So first things first. Let's do the present value. What is she borrowing?
12,000.
The present value is $12,000, and it's a positive because it's in her account. She's going to make monthly payments of $1,000. Negative $1,000. The future value is going to be 0, right?
3.2%.
3.2% interest.
Compounded monthly.
12 and 12. So let's find out the number of payments it's going to take for her to pull this off. Okay, so calculate the number of payments first. What do we get? How many payments? 12.212. Is that what everybody else got? Okay. So 12.212 payments. Okay, so now remember that's monthly payments, correct? So she's under the 16 weeks, right? And at the end of it, what does she have at the end of this? She has a car. Now how much is that car worth at the end of it? For me? Louder, Nicole, please.
You're right 99% of the time, so just say.
What is it?
I didn't actually do the math, but it's 20% less than.
Okay, so what is it worth? She has a car worth $9,600 at the end. Right? Okay, so but there's also another cost added in here. So how much did she actually pay though? As well as what? As well as what? So she paid $250 per week, right?
Plus the cost of the car.
So, plus the cost of the car. So she spent 16 times 250, right? That was the cost of the gas. Okay, so what does that work out to?
4,000.
$4,000 of incidentals. How much did she pay for the vehicle? $12,212 and 45 cents. So in total, she paid $16,212.45. Quite a bit more than these two guys, right? But what?
I just got a vehicle.
She has a vehicle. Left over, right? So realistically, what did this cost her for that 16 weeks? Like what basically did it cost her for 16 weeks? Outside of, if she gets that vehicle, she keeps the vehicle, what did it cost her for those 16 weeks? Right? That's 4,000 she doesn't get back. That was 4,000 for her to live for 16 weeks. Correct? Yes, she did have to pay it for a vehicle. So I guess what we could do though, right? We could take that number here, subtract it from 9,600 because that also cost her that amount, right? Because her car depreciated 20%. So you could also take that as maybe that's also what it cost her in the long run. All right?
Question.
Go ahead.
It says it depreciates in value by 20% each year.
Yeah.
So would you just round whatever time it is up to a full year, or would you?
We could take that 0.2. We could find out what it was 0.2, this part here, because she only went over a year by 0.2, right? So you could do that, but we won't have to. We're not going to. All right. And you can see in their answer there, right? The total cost would be $16,212.45. So not only do you have to have some skills here in calculating, but you have to also start thinking of other issues as to why you would rent or buy or lease. Okay, as we go through. When you get your pre-test, which I'll run off this morning right away here. When you get your pre-test, there are mortgage questions on there that we will have to look at as a group. Okay, so for today, we need to try and get done to the end of that 2.4 or close to it by tomorrow. All right, we're testing on Tuesday on chapter 2. I'll get the pre-test to you this
I
morning.
thought that was pre-calc, when we're writing both tests Tuesday.
Pre-calc Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay, well this one we can put till Thursday next week then.
Okay.
So you'll have lots of time to do all of this. Okay? Any questions? Okay, so you were working on 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Were there any questions in there that were causing grief? No? Okay. All right then, you keep working on it.